Today I'm going to talk about the pros and cons to living in Airbnb. Why trust me? Well, I've lived in over 50 Airbnbs, sometimes for weeks or months over the last 2 years, probably closer to 100 now. In fact, I'm currently in an Airbnb with two, not one, living rooms. I mean, have you ever seen a couch like this? Amazing. So we'll come on back. It actually has two dining tables. And let me show you a little bit about the setup because I think it matters in terms of Airbnb pros and cons, as I will mention shortly. So let's come on back to the back garden here. And I'll tell you all about the pros and cons while we look at this beautiful, beautiful backyard for this Airbnb. Okay, so I think it'd be fun to walk through one pro, one con at a time. There's a lot of really fun and interesting ones. So the major pro is I love Airbnbs over hotels because I've been to a lot of hotels as well in my travels. They're very cookie cutter, very standard. You get a bed, everything's white, and it gets really old really quickly. I don't care if it's some luxury hotel. It's still kind of old, you know? It's just a bed, maybe a luxury bathroom. Sure, I mean, I wouldn't mind that, but it's just not as robust and versatile in terms of all the features that an Airbnb offers. An Airbnb has a fully decked out kitchen, as you saw. Oftentimes you get full utensils, you'll get a bed, you'll get TV with Netflix, sometimes multiple streaming services. You get access to a backyard, you get the full architecture of the actual place. And I've stayed in some places with really interesting architecture just because of the culture of the place. For example, in New Mexico, I mean, the houses, the insides, the decorations, the props, they all had this Mexican feel to them that was really cool. And then, of course, as you can see, you got these a very nice homey vibe with the couches, the beds, the TVs, the bed in your room. It's just a lot of other amenities that I would prefer since I like to cook, eat healthy, and do all those things that maybe a hotel won't offer. Like laundry. Laundry is so big. I follow this other Instagrammer, Maria Parapova, or something like that. She's huge on Instagram, has 1 million followers. And she posted about complaining about never being able to do laundry. So when one hotel she was staying at had laundry, she was so excited. Why? Because she's a travel nomad who makes her living off hotel deals and only lives in hotels. And guess what? Most hotels don't even have laundry or dryer. So what's the con about an Airbnb? Now, I've already mentioned a few pros kind of combined as one, so I'll mention a few cons combined as one as well. Airbnbs vary a lot in terms of their house rules and how strict they are and all these nuances about them. You can't treat them as the same etiquette as a hotel. For example, some of them will say you can only do laundry if you're staying over 7 days, which is a hassle. And some are like you could do it whenever you want. Another rule I found, and this just varies across the board, is like they want the kitchen and everything in like pristine condition at all times. This was one that I didn't find to be the case for most Airbnbs, and then I hit one where they wanted that. And then I got this really kind of upset message from a host because I had left some food that I was cooking in the kitchen just for like, couple hours while I went back to do work on my computer because I had some really important meetings to attend to. And then I got that message and like, it should be in pristine condition at all times. This is unacceptable. And so I had to apologize, accept all those responsibilities and say, I'm sorry, I didn't realize the rules were so strict and I should have read the house rules. And hearing from others, I've been a really good guest. I've had average 5-star ratings as a guest constantly. I've only had like 2 or 3 bad reviews and not even that bad. But I've heard from others through the host complaining to me about other horror stories where like a guest just treats it like a casual thing. They come in, they get upset because they don't know any better. They're not. And so, long story short, you can't treat it like a hotel where the maids will pick up for you wherever. Yes, they will sometimes hire maids to clean the bathroom for you once a week or whatnot. But it varies a lot. And then a lot of other things are more so like, you use it, you have to clean it thoroughly. It's not like a hotel where you can leave it a mess. So I think the big ones are probably like the kitchen, bathroom, not as much, but like use your best judgment there. And then of course, like no food in the bedroom. You don't want to stain anything. So you have to be more on guard than you would. Okay, so back to the pros. Another pro about Airbnb is that, I mean, there's a more casual, accessible vibe to it. Most of the time, like in this house, oftentimes most or all of the house is rented out, or in some cases, the entire house is built to be an Airbnb house, which means that you're going to be running into people flowing through. Everything's streamlined and clean. There's no hassles, and you make a lot of friends. So on occasion, you'll run into a roommate and you'll stay in touch or just hang out. So it's like a hostel, but like not as young or rowdy or crazy. And then sometimes, if you want to, keep to yourself, you just stay in your room and you never bump into anyone else. There are some trade-offs there. So the cons of that are there's a lot of variance with that. Sometimes it's not like that, and it's literally just the homeowner who's a crazy older individual. I mean, not crazy, but like just you get a lot more personalities with Airbnb, and it is sometimes someone's home. Like in the case I showed you here, they had all the cabinets and parts of the fridge labeled for each room that you was staying in, so it was very streamlined. But I've definitely been in many other places where, like in Asheville, I was in the mountains, and the home I was staying was a music teacher's home. So I heard her training and practicing with her students often, and she was not shy, so she kept asking me questions, and then she really wanted to hear my story. So I was like, sure. So we sat down, and she wanted to have a long conversation about that. And it was just kind of the mountain vibe. So that's something you may have to deal with, just more chatty hosts or people. Or in this house, it's very streamlined for just like living as a guest. But in those cases, like you have to walk around and navigate around, because like maybe they're cooking in the kitchen as well. Maybe like half the stuff is their own possessions. There's like, random children's toys and stuff all around the house. So you can screen a lot of that out though, based off the filters and the pictures in the Airbnb. So, I mean, a lot of it is on you to really read the house rules and do your research. It's just a lot of people don't. And back to one of the horror stories, I heard from one person, this guy, cheap type of guy, he booked for one night, demanded a refund because he didn't want it. The Airbnb rules said that you can't get a refund, but the host was kind, gave him half a refund, and then he got angry, made all these creepy threats, said he'd send some of his gang out at like 4 a.m. It was kind of a weird story, the host told me, but yeah, you run onto weird situations on both sides. Luckily for me, I haven't run into anything crazy. Although I have some stories, so I'll tell you one. There's a few, but like one, I booked with a superhost. Superhosts are like really well-reviewed hosts. I usually always do that to just a higher level of safety there. And with this superhost, I showed up, and this was unfortunately one of those rare cases where there's no keypad at the door. She was going to hand me the key physically. So I show up, I call, ring, no one answers the door. I end up just like, it's already dark out, but I end up exploring the area for like an hour or two, coming back, and then she's rushing and just apologizing profusely. This was in Albuquerque. And I was one of the few to be kind enough to still give her a really good review afterwards. I didn't hold it against her. I think I gave her 4 stars instead of 5 on the check-in category, but everything else was good. Maybe it was 3 stars. But point being, I was still very kind. But I was pretty upset about that. I saw it coming. I gave her messages. I'm like, "Are you sure you want to do this? Like, hey, I'm coming around this range. Are you going to be ready? Be sure." And it wasn't enough. I could have. My lesson learned was like, be more. I can't control her, but I can control myself. I need to be more explicit there. And people make stupid mistakes. I told her afterwards, like, what could I have done better? Because she overslept. That's what it was. She overslept. She says she never does that. And then I was there and she wasn't there to meet me for like 2 hours. So I said, I know, is there anything I could have done better? Like been straight up more explicit about the exact time I'm arriving. And she's like, it really wasn't your fault at all. But yeah, you could give me the exact time. And in my head, I'm like, well, there's traffic, there's rest stops I'm taking, there's all this stuff. I can't give you an exact time. And usually check-ins give you a range. It was just rather frustrating a bit. And I think if anything, I could have, in the future, I would have just said like, hey, this has happened to me before. Please do not oversleep or anything when I show up. But it is just, you run into those stupid issues that would never happen with the hotel check-in because the concierge, the lobby is on point. They would never oversleep there because it's not their house. They're not just relaxing. But unfortunately, you run the risk of human behaviors. These are just average folk. I mean, many of them are professional Airbnb hosts, but you run this issue with them having these late check-ins, and you can adjust for that with bad reviews, but that's about it. And I didn't want to be mean. She was very nice, and the rest of the experience was pretty good. So back to the pros of Airbnbs. You get so much variance. Like every house is different. This backyard, this patio is different from anything I've experienced before. I mean, you got the fence, you got the pool, the bird bath. This one has literally 2 living rooms with couches. I've never seen that before. You get the local access, you get the local advice. You can ask the host where to travel or visit. They'll give you insider tips. You're not upsold with random stuff that a hotel would. It's a less plastic experience than a hotel. And I really like that about that. Check-in is usually, depends on the house, so there's some variance, but it could be anywhere from 2 p.m. all the way till like 4 or 5 p.m. where you can check in. And then checkout's usually anywhere from 8 a.m. to like 12 p.m. depending on how lax the host is. So that's very similar to Airbnb, to hotels. But you get so much more flavor here, and you can usually get this access. Even living in a local neighborhood just gives you a more homely feel if you want to test out the real life of an area versus, this parking lot plaza that's kind of, like I said, kind of plastic feeling, corporate feeling with a resort. So back to the cons, and I think I'll wrap it up here because the video is getting long, but I could talk about this for like an hour on a podcast. Another con with Airbnbs is just the hassles and issues with those intricacies with dealing with someone's home and all the rules there. You have to read the house manual. You have to read the, login manual. And even then, you're going to deal with people, hosts, who are going to say it's your fault, and they'll take no responsibility if something bad happens. So one of the few remaining horror stories I had was one where, and as you can see, I've clearly been to a lot of Airbnbs. This one was in, I believe, Houston, or was it Dallas? Yeah, it was Houston. And this Asian couple hosted. And long and short of it, it was a gated community, so you check in with the security guard, he opens the gate, and then you park in front of your apartment inside that gated community. Turns out there's certain places you can park, certain places you can't. And the issue was that I was parking in a place I couldn't. I got told I had to pay $300 cash. They wouldn't accept uh, credit cards or any of that, which was another thing I had to get through because all my credit cards were in the car at the time. So it was a huge hassle, cost me a lot of time to figure out. Uh, and the host wouldn't accept any responsibility. So she said, there's a sign on the security gate coming in. And I told the host, I'm checking in late at night. It's a long drive here. But that didn't help. So, long story short, I had to pay that out of pocket. I tried to bring it up with Airbnb and support. They wouldn't help at all, which is really such a shame. Airbnb, if you're trying to succeed, you should be helping the customers who are fueling your revenue. And for someone who's a super customer like me, who spent literally tens of thousands on the platform, it really is a shame. So if you're watching this, reach out to me because I never got any sort of compensation for that. They sided with the host. But the host's claim was that, oh, it's labeled once on the security gate, but it was not labeled in the house manual, any of the directions, or any of the rules. And there's a lot to read. You know, they give you a house manual. They'll give you like an essay when you check in as a message, usually, if they're a good host. And so that was just a rather huge shame. So that's it. Pros and cons of Airbnbs. Generally speaking, I still prefer an Airbnb over anything else. I think the experience is fantastic. But, you know, nothing's perfect. So thanks for watching. Subscribe. I'll see you later.